Hello, my lovelies. I'm Ginny O, and we are discussing in a series what it is like if you are a person who wants to go from fan fiction to original fiction. In the last videos, we talked about some things that you need to consider before you even start writing your book, and some differences in writing styles between fan fiction and original fiction. And today we're going to talk about when you're writing fan fiction to original fiction, you're going into original fiction, and what if you want to be traditionally published? Now, to be honest, this isn't part of what my metaphor is the ice cream shop that I've ever really been in, because I have not been traditionally published. But I have been kind of around the block of the social media scene and researched into it because I have wanted to be traditionally published. But if you are looking for more information about what it means to be traditionally published, there are some people on Tumblr that talk about it, agents and acquisition editors who have posts on Tumblr, and there are YouTubers who used to be agents who talk about their journey to being published here on YouTube. I can't remember all of their names, but they often give a lot of writing advice. So if you're looking for writing advice, many of them have been published, and they will give you their kind of little story in certain places. But as a former fanfiction author, when you decide you want to be traditionally published, there is going to be a kind of difference in what you're normally doing. One, you do need a complete manuscript. When you publish fan fiction, a lot of the times you're publishing it one chapter at the time, and you might not know what's next, and you're just publishing it when you have time to write it. And with traditional publishing, you need a completed manuscript when you are submitting your story to be considered for publishing, which you do through an agent. You don't go directly to the publishing company. You will submit it to a bunch of agents. They will tell you, yes, I liked this. No, I don't like this. More often no than yes. And then from there, you will be going from the agent will pitch your book to an editor. The editor will read your book through and suggest changes, which you may or may not have to take. And then the editor will pitch it to publishing companies. And if you're get into a publishing company, your agent will have a contact within the publishing company imprint that is representing you in the publishing company. So it's kind of like you've got a couple middlemen, but first you have to get through the editor to be accepted by the publishing company before you're considered one of their authors. So there is a process, and you need to have an entire manuscript before you do it. And even the people who are the unicorns of this industry, like 50 Shades of Grey, Cassie Clare, Ali Hazelwood, even Anthony Weir, even though he wasn't writing fan fiction, he was writing Mars science fiction, which is like a whole genre to itself. They were done. Basically, they had a manuscript before they either approached publishers or publishers approached them, or rather agents. And this is a very rare occurrence. You cannot rely on it. The reason why you cannot rely on it is, even though agents and publishers know places like Wattpad and AO3 exist, they have a pretty strict kind of guideline that is not a rule, but is something they kind of adhere to about the books that they would consider for publishing. Things like The Martian and After, and Ali Hazelwood's first story there that she filed the serial numbers off. They had millions of views on Wattpad. Millions. And Wattpad does work with Simon and Schuster. I don't know how long that's going to continue since Simon and Schuster is under new management. But you have to have millions of views, even though Wattpad has 18 million subscribers. Publishing houses and agents are like, we know that people who read traditionally published books are not the same people going to Wattpad. So you have to have millions of views on Wattpad for them to consider the idea that your book might have broad mass market appeal for bookstores. Even though bookstores, a lot of times, the sales numbers are not going to be in the millions. It's going to be, the thousands or hundreds of thousands if you're lucky, depending on your genre. So you have to remember, in order to get on the New York Times bestseller list, you have to sell like 6,000 in a year or something like that. There's a number of books that you have to sell in a certain amount of time to make this list, or like a week or a month or something like that. And the publishing houses can manipulate that in order to get the books they want on it. And so when you're traditionally going for traditional publishing, you need to have a manuscript finished. Please do not be like Light Lark's author and put up this trailer for a book that you have not even touched yet. And if you're going to do some sort of marketing campaign on your own and you haven't finished the book yet, I still strongly suggest finish the book, then do your marketing campaign, and then release the book. That way you have time to do your edits and you don't feel rushed and pressured to put the book out before it's ready. Okay? But don't be like that. Don't put out this trailer for a book that you don't even have yet, and the proof is kind of in the book itself. Like, yeah, she didn't have a book written. So have your manuscript done. Secondly, you're going to have word count limits as if you're traditionally published. Okay, in fan fiction, you can write as long or as short of a story as you like. But in traditional publishing, particularly if you're a debut author, depending on your genre and age market, you are going to have a very set word limit for what you can have and no more. So for young adult, I'm going to say this is 50,000. For an older young adult, like what Iron Widow was done, a Widow was put into, I want to say about 80,000. That book needed at least 110, but we got 80. And that was heavily dependent on formatting too. A book like Harry Potter, it was 65,000, the first one. The max amount for science fiction and fantasy that you're going to get is 110, but as a debut, they'll want you to keep it at 80. 80,000 words. That's it. So your sweet spot is between 50,000 words and 80,000 words. That's what you want. So for middle grade, though, you kind of can hit 35, 40. That's kind of it. I think 35 is The Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe, and I think that's closer to 33. But there's a lot of books out there. There's a whole list of them that will tell you exactly which books hit 50,000 and which books hit 80,000 and stuff like that. Because of the popularity of National Novel Writing Month, there are these comparisons for length, so you can look at the format and look at the page count. Yes, page count does not matter in publishing because your page count is really going to depend on formatting. And if you have a middle grade or young adult book, your font size is going to be bigger, most likely, and your spacing between the lines is going to be bigger. And possibly the font that they use will be a font that's specifically designed to be more legible to younger readers, that will help them read better. In adult books, your font sizes get smaller and the spaces get smaller, and so, the expanse in my book are probably both about 170,000 words, because we're using an 11-point font in a 6x9 page with the same type of margins. I'm going to say The Discovery of Witches is about the same thing. It all really does go down to your formatting. It really does. So that's why they use page count or word count, because they know the word count is a lot more stable than the page count. Okay. So when you get into traditional publishing, like I said, with genre, you have to follow the rules. You do have to follow the rules of the genre, so you are not special. I hate to break this to you, you are not special. The other thing is, most times you will not bring your fandom readers with you. So it's not really wise to market off of your fandom readers. I have seen this also in indie publishing, but I feel that this bears witnessing. We're going to put it here in traditional publishing, because most fan authors do not have a big enough following that's going to read whatever they write, no matter what the IP is. So you are going to have people who are very, very attached to certain canons and certain IPs, and they're not going to follow you to the original space, no matter if they're telling you, you should write original work. Yeah, that doesn't mean you're going to read it, but thank you. That's a compliment to my writing, I guess. So you have to, understand that. Another thing is you are going to have contracts, and these contracts are going to include deadlines and something called a morality clause. So you are going to have a deadline. In fan fiction, most often you don't have a deadline. So if you get burnt out, or you're tired, or you're stressed, or you just don't know where shit is going, you can kind of just let things lay. And your readers, even if you're like publishing a couple years later a new chapter, they'll get that little ping in their email, and might be willing to come back and read it. They might start over from the beginning, need a refresher, but you can take pretty much as much time as you need to write your story. Whereas when you're doing a contract, you will generally need to be writing a singular book a year, and you have to have it in by this time, and it needs to be this long, and you will have to decide as an author what part of the story it covers. But you'll have a contract, and your contract might be a 1-book contract, so they see how well it sells before giving you a 2-book or 3-book contract. It might be a 2-book contract, or it might be a 3-book contract. It really does depend. It's still kind of iffy on if they're buying up series contracts now. They're offering them. A lot of times they are going to offer you a standalone contract, and then see if it sells well enough, they will make a series contract out of it. So you can't rely on it. So they want you to set up your first book of your standalone to have like open questions in it, so they could turn it into a series if it sells well enough. And as an author, it's really, really hard to do that. And I have read, even in the past year, a couple books that I could tell were started and set up as standalone novels, and you could really tell when you read the summaries of the next novel, or you try reading the next novel, that they did not know where they were going with the story. They didn't have that second part of the story fleshed out, structured. They don't no idea what they're doing. and even after they've like written 4 or 5 novels, sometimes you get this too. They don't know what you can tell that the author was given a new contract and they not entirely sure where they were going with the story. And it shows in the book, but they're on contract and they had to turn the book in. Maybe the most infamous is this is George R. R. Martin. He had a 3-book contract. They then upped it to 5 and now have upped it to 7. And yeah, he didn't really have enough planned for 7 books, but here we are. And that's why also they stopped offering some series contract because he is not turning his books in on time. The other reason is J.K. Rowling. But so that's something you have to be aware of. You are going to have a deadline and you are going to have a contract. And there is going to be a morality clause in this contract. So Kate Corain. Just gonna float that name out there. A morality clause in your contract is basically you can't defame or slander or libel your agent, your publisher, and any other authors in your own imprint. It's not really wise as a professional author to be running around giving 1-star reviews anyway, but like in this morality clause, if you do that, you can lose your contract, which is not great. So if you have a tendency to be doing these things in fan fiction, you can't be doing this in original fiction, in trad publishing. It's not professional behavior. You have to start acting like a professional, because the huge difference between fan fiction and being traditionally published is you are now an industry professional. And you need to act like an industry professional. I'm going to do a video about the difference between fan fiction culture and traditional fiction culture, even indie culture. I'm going to do a video about this. It's going to be after, like, we've got a video about indie publishing, and then I'm going to do the differences in culture, but I really want to focus on, you have a contract, you have word counts to take into, but yes, you have to be a professional. You have a standard of behavior you're going to be held to, and if you can't do it, you might lose your contract. Okay, so you've got word counts, you've got deadlines, you've got little genre rules you got to follow, you've got a contract. You're going to be, you got to have a complete book. These are the type of things that don't really come up in fan fiction, because you're doing it for fun in your spare time versus you're trying to make a go of this to get a little income. Because you've got stories in your head and you want to tell these stories and you think they're fun and you want to share them with other people, but they're not other people's IP, so you can make money off of them. I mean, there is nothing wrong with writing in other people's IP for fun. I get it. And, writing in the public domain IPs for fun, that's great. Do it. But if you have your own original IP and you want to share it with the world, there's nothing wrong with wanting to get a little money in return for all your hard work too, okay? So just be aware, when you go into traditional publishing, there is a process. You're going to go through an agent. The agent's going to send it to an editor once you get one, if you get one. It's hard. The editor will pitch you to a publishing house. Then you're going to get somebody in the publishing house that's going to, talk back and forth with your agent, who's going to talk to you, like the middleman. And, you've got rules to follow, rules of genre to follow in your book. You've got deadlines, you've got word counts, you've got all this type of stuff that you're going to have to keep in mind if you're going to be a published professional author, okay? I've talked about like social media as a professional, as an author, but I'll talk more about the differences between the fan fiction and the social media and the traditional publishing, indie publishing, social media, in that differences of culture video, okay? Take care of yourselves, my lovelies. Bless, stay safe, and I will see you in the next video.